Hi, this is Lindsay, one of the co-hosts of Beauties and Headcanons. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hey, this is Jerry Strauss, host of Hollywood Happy Plays here on Public House Media. Thank you for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. And once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Hollywood Happy Plays, where we talk with and about all of your favorite names from the worlds of TV, movies, music, whatever entertains you. We are getting up close and personal with those people right here on HHP. A new show comes out every 2 weeks, so don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Hollywood Happy Place. Thank you again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Throughout history, the course of sports has been shaped by one thing: the fans.
From the moments you never dreamed of,
Bobby Womack has saved the USA's life in this World Cup. Paul, the runner, loose ball, it's good. Gonzaga, the slipper still fits.
To the moments that still give you nightmares.
Behind the bag, it gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it. He's in. Patriots win the Super Bowl. Brady has his fifth.
through the good and the bad, fans have helped change the games we watch and the players we love.
They may not be the most logical people.
You are a factory of sadness. I'll see you Sunday.
But they know their teams better than anybody.
They'll blow in the ninth.
You may not always see them, but you know where to find them.
After all, there's nothing quite like the view from the cheap seats.
Broadcasting as part of the Public House Media Network.
Grab a chair and enjoy all there is in
The cheap seats.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome inside the cheap seats here on the Public House Media Network on this Monday, June 4th. Welcome to the month of June. Christian Heimall with you, as well as Jon Lauder, as always. A fun show for you today. Of course, we're going to get into last night's Game 2 and what it all means for the NBA Finals. And of course, the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. There's a lot going on. Johnny's Packers are in a lot of trouble, and I'm sure he's crying about it right now, but you can't hear him, so he's muted the microphone. Oh, he is there. Hey, John.
Hey, what's up? I'm not crying. They're fine. You're overdramatic.
Are you sure about that? Because It seems like Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to be there much longer, but who knows?
Stop it.
All right, we'll get into all that as well in a little bit. But before we do, a couple of big headlines to get to. John, I know it's June, but we've gotten to a point now in the Major League Baseball season where you can kind of see how things are going to happen. It's been a little bit over 2 months since the season began, and these trends are starting to become actual realities that we are seeing in Major League Baseball with which teams are going to be good, which players are going to struggle, and all that stuff. One of the unfortunate things that we have seen recently over the last couple of weeks, the injury bug has started to hit in a big way. Now, you've got some, of course, freak accidents, like, for instance, Yadier Molina, who will be coming off the DL shortly after he took that foul tip to the groin. You have Brandon Belt, who had to be rushed away from the game and have an emergency appendectomy over the weekend. But then you've got superstars like the Boston Red Sox, who have their MVP and possible Triple Crown candidate in Mookie Betts, who has been shelved after missing 5-6 straight games. And then Dustin Pedroia, who just missed the first 2 months of the season with a knee injury. He's back on the DL after inflammation. So this has been an interesting wave over the last couple of weeks where we've seen superstars start heading to the disabled list.
Yeah, and look, Dustin Pedroia, that one is just crazy to me. I mean, he just already hurt. Then he goes back on the disabled list. You lose Mookie Betts, so if not for Mike Trout, would be the MVP of the league right now. I mean, he's been just absolutely unbelievable. But look, Boston's going to be okay. Their run differential is still ridiculous. They're still right up top there with the Yankees. It's absurd to me, Christian, that we're going to have one of the Red Sox or the Yankees have to play in a one-game playoff, and they're going to end up with the two best records in Major League Baseball unless something ridiculous happens. And that's the one thing about the wild card setup that really is a problem, because this shouldn't happen. I know that the point of the wild card is to reward the team that wins the division, and I totally get that and I agree with it. But both of these teams are likely to win 100 games. And it's crazy to me that one of them is going to have to play in a wild card game. That just makes no sense. But Boston's going to be fine. Yes, obviously losing Betts and Pedroia again isn't great, but they have so much offensive talent, and their pitching's been really good. And they've got better starting pitching than the Yankees do. So injuries are part of the game. For me, the biggest injury that is most concerning to me is Clayton Kershaw. I mean, is he ever going to be the same? He just can't seem to stay on the field anymore.
Yeah, I mean, to be able to go through all that back injury, and then he gets 5 innings into his return, and he's got the back injury again. He's going to have an MRI here in a couple of days if he hasn't already. But it's just scary to think that with how bad the Dodgers are, and with how much they need a guy like Kershaw, and how much we've raved for the last 4 years about Clayton Kershaw, that this is the second coming of Sandy Koufax.
Yeah.
That this is a guy who is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He might be there right now. Maybe not a first ballot guy, but he might be in the Hall of Fame category as we speak. But this is one of those injuries as a pitcher with that lower back issue that can really shorten a career.
Yeah, and look, I think it will be hard to keep him out of the Hall of Fame at this point. I mean, let's say, worst case scenario, he never pitches again. He's 145 and 68, a 2.37 ERA for his career, 3 Cy Youngs, I believe.
Yes.
Now look, he's not been great in the playoffs, but
nope. Aside from last year he was tremendous.
He was, but he's just, to me, he's been so incredibly dominant over a long enough period of time that I think it'll be really hard to keep him out. But I mean, to not even get to 150 wins, of course, if he doesn't pitch again, would be hard. And, because you look at, but I'm going to contradict myself. Wins are not as important now as they used to be.
They're not.
And his WAR for his career is still almost 62, which is pretty high, considering he's really only had, let me see, like 8 or 9 true full seasons. I'm not counting his first year.
Right.
And I'm not counting this year, obviously. I mean, he's been an incredibly dominant
But
pitcher.
that's the thing, though. When you talk about Kershaw as a potential Hall of Famer right now, you're looking at maybe 7 full seasons.
Yeah.
Maybe 7 full seasons where he was, and there were probably only 4 of those where he was truly the best pitcher in the game. I mean, save for probably the Verlander MVP year. In 2000, what was that, 2009, I think it was?
Yeah.
Or no, 2012, his second year in the league, whatever it might have been, Kershaw's second year in the league. It's, aside from that, is that enough to be able to sit there without, and I know, I'm going to contradict myself too, I know championships, in my opinion, don't mean that much, but he's been in 1 World Series, yes, 3 Cy Youngs, but less than 150 wins, less than 300 starts. It's one of those things where, was he around long enough to warrant a Hall of Fame? Now, of course, this is all conjecture. It doesn't mean anything if he actually does come back and pitch this for a couple more years. But, I mean, it was interesting. I kind of posed the idea of a possible poll question, and we'll get to our actual poll question later, but of whose career ends first, Pedroia or Kershaw. Now, Pedroia's been in the league 2 years longer, and a knee injury to a second baseman probably does more damage than a back injury to a pitcher, but Pedroia could always go the DH route if he wanted, even though I don't think anybody would sign a 5'9" DH. But it's still just scary to think that this guy, with how talented he is and how much the Dodgers need him more than anything, John, that's the big difference.
Right.
You said the Red Sox are going to be just fine, and I agree with you from an offensive standpoint, they'll be fine without Pedroia, but the Dodgers are already god-awful right now. And when they're supposed to have such a talented pitching staff, without Clayton Kershaw, it just makes them that much worse.
Yeah, and I mean, they're 2 games under 500, and it's been a real struggle. And you look at that pitching staff outside of Kershaw this season, they only have 2 players who have started over 10 games. Alex Wood, who's 1-4, and Kenta Maeda, who's 4-4. Mm-hmm. So they've been a mess. I mean, the team is really.
I tell you what, Ross Stripling has been a nice little find for them over the last couple of starts. Ross Stripling has been pretty solid for them. Obviously, Kenley Jansen has been up or down for the last 2 years now as a closer, even though he can be very, very good. And really, it's so strange for me to think this, but I go back to I think it was 3 years ago when the whole Yasiel Puig issues started. And it just kind of seems as almost though the culture of that clubhouse kind of changed a little bit.
Yeah.
And I love Dave Roberts. I think he's a tremendously talented manager. I don't know if he's the guy to be able to take this team to the next level. As much as I think he is incredibly talented and deserves to be a major league manager, there's just so much with this team right now to see them struggle this much with that much talent. I mean, and again, we got to remember that Corey Seager's on the out for the year. We got to remember that. Like, one of their best offensive players is out for the year too, so that doesn't exactly help. But this has just been a Clayton Kershaw only kind of, I think, underlines how bad of an injury bug it's been for a star standpoint in Major League Baseball so far here through the first 2 months.
Yeah, and they have multiple players also who are not playing as well as you would expect. Somehow Matt Kemp's batting .347. I'm not sure how he's been doing that.
Ageless wonder.
Yeah, Justin Turner's been well below his average. Cody Bellinger has been awful. So
Jock Peterson struggled a little bit.
Yeah, so they have not been great. You're inside the cheap seats here on the Public House Media Network. Jon Lauder, Christian Heimall with you on this Monday morning, June 4th. Let's move away from baseball into some basketball right now. Some interesting potential candidates. Obviously, we're in the NBA Finals, which we'll get to in some future segments, but there's plenty of off-season news and notes as well. The Detroit Pistons with some two very interesting coaching possibilities. Now, they've had a big turnover. They let Stan Van Gundy go, who was the GM/coach. We all know how terrible an idea that is. That doesn't work anywhere. So they let him go. They bring in Ed Stefanski, their new executive. They're also, they actually had a GM with Van Gundy. He was like a team president. The whole thing was weird. They let go of the GM. They let go of Van Gundy. They bring in Stefanski, and now they've got to hire a new head coach. And they're looking at two interesting possibilities, not even including Dwayne Casey, who I think should be involved as well. But you got John Beilein, the Michigan coach, who's done such an amazing job with that program. And then future Hall of Famer, coach for the Bucks, coach for the Nets, Jason Kidd, who's kind of flaky, seems to leave jobs, as quickly as he gets to them. Didn't really get the most out of Giannis and the whole situation in Milwaukee. So a couple of interesting options here for Detroit as they try to move their team into the future.
Yeah, it's one of those strange things, and of course, apparently the Pistons are also thinking about meeting with Juwan Howard, the Miami Heat assistant, here in a couple of days. But this is one of those ones, right? Exactly, yeah. So I mean, that kind of, to be honest, I mean,
and
I know we're talking about
fiber. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah. I know we're talking about Kidd or Beilein here at the moment, but it seems like those two are probably the bottom two, I would think, in a choice here. And the other part is Beilein said earlier in May that he was in talks about a contract extension with Michigan. So this kind of feels like leverage right now, more than anything else for John Beilein. Now, do I think he would be a good NBA coach? No, because listen, we've seen this. It's very rare that you have a Brad Stevens type deal. Guy, talented college coach, does the same thing at the NBA level. I think the Pistons might actually be a team where Beilein could succeed, because number one, you're going to put butts in seats because it's John Beilein, a Michigan legend in Detroit. You're going to have a young enough team where you can kind of get these kids to buy in a little bit, and every single one of them has played at least 1 year of college ball, where if Beilein has some of the same principles instituted, maybe they buy in a little bit more. So who knows? It could be interesting, although I still think that Dwayne Casey should probably be the runaway favorite in this.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, why would Beilein leave Michigan at this point? He's got a great situation there. He's getting
Why would
paid.
Harbaugh leave Stanford?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know?
Michigan. Yeah, but Michigan's got more prestige than Stanford in college football. Okay, I mean,
Stanford's got more wins over the last few years.
Well, of course, but Jim Harbaugh's also making more money than he made at Stanford.
Yes,
I mean, he's one of the top 3 paid coaches in college football. I'm pretty sure. Beilein's making a ton of money. Michigan's had a lot of success recently. By the way, I'm losing my mind. I said Juwan Howard was a former Piston. He never played for Detroit. He just was a Michigan Fab Fiver.
You said Fab. You said yeah.
Yeah.
You did say Fab Fiver, so you're good.
Yeah, I'm good. I would not hire Jason Kidd personally. I would stay away from him. I know he did some decent things with the Nets and with the Bucks, but he always seems to be looking for that next job. I just don't think he's the right fit. Dwayne Casey, I guess, out of those 3 would be my personal choice, I guess. But I don't even love Casey either. He was fired after being named Coach of the Year. I mean,
Right.
I do think he's a good coach. He did some nice things with Toronto, but could never get them over the hump. And I'm not even sure what this Detroit team is.
Right.
Because you traded for Blake Griffin. They went sort of all in. I'm using, quotation marks. And yet the team makes no sense. You've got Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond, who are very similar players in a lot of ways. I don't know. It's a weird team. They're just not constructed very well. And I don't even know what the right coach is for this team. I don't know if there is a right coach. And quite frankly, as long as LeBron's in the East and you got the Celtics, it really doesn't matter. So I'm not sure what the Pistons do. They're kind of they're treading water like a lot of other teams in the East right now.
Well, we're going to make sure that we give you guys a choice because that's what we do here, even though we say what our pick is and then we decide completely different the other way. The poll question today, if you only had to choose, now we're ignoring Dwayne Casey, who seems to be the right pick out of these 4 potential candidates. We're ignoring Juwan Howard as well because he doesn't bring as much cachet to the topic. If you only had to pick between Jason Kidd and John Beilein, who are you hiring as the head coach of the Detroit Pistons? I'm going Beilein because he's at least going to put butts in seats for the first season. At least. That's about it.
Yeah, you know what? I would too. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, if you're having me choose, honestly, if you gave me a choice of Kidd with just about any other NBA coach, I'd probably pick the other coach. So, yeah, I'm going with John Beilein as well.
So, and we'll see exactly how this all pans out. Who knows what's going to actually happen with all of this stuff. So it'll be fun to watch. It'll be interesting to see because there are only 2 vacancies left, correct? There's this one, and then there's the Bucks, who still don't have a head coach. Or
no, they hired Mike Budenholzer.
Oh, that's right. They did hire Budenholzer. Who am I missing? Someone's still got a job.
Missing.
Orlando hired their guy.
Yeah, Steve Clifford.
Go
ahead. Let's do the Mike Francesa and go through every team.
Nope, I'm good. Nope, I'm okay. I'm all right. You know what makes this Pistons job even tougher, John? And I just realized it, and why I wouldn't be envious of anybody. They don't have a first-round pick.
Right. Yeah. See that?
I don't think they have a pick. Do they have a pick this year?
Stan Van Gundy's he's the worst.
No, I'm literally looking. Oh, they have the 42nd pick. They have the 12th pick in the second round.
Yeah,
that's it. That's their only. Wow. All right. Good luck, whoever takes that. You're in the cheap seats here, Christian Heimall and Jon Lauder. Don't forget to head to our Facebook page, The Cheap Seats by Public House Media. Vote on the poll question: who'd you rather have coaching the Pistons, Jason Kidd or John Beilein? Let's ignore the fact that there are 2 other probably better candidates.
Christian, real quick, it's
yes.
Toronto. It's Toronto.
Toronto, duh.
And that's a job that a lot of coaches should theoretically want. So
should, but yeah.
They'll probably end up hiring Jason Kidd or doing something stupid like that.
They probably will. So, last thing to get here before we go to break, real quick, John. It happened over the weekend. I was a little shocked by the news. Of course, the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, a league very near and dear to my heart after spending 6 years as the voice of one of their schools, Manhattan, announced over the weekend that they will be moving their conference tournament for basketball in 2020 to Atlantic City. 2020 to 2022, heading to the Jim Whalen Boardwalk Hall for 3 seasons. First time the MAC tournament heads to New Jersey since 2003. It has been in Albany for a very long period of time, and I'm so happy that it's no longer in Albany because it's stupid that Siena gets to host the MAC tournament, even though they don't technically get to host it because it's not on campus. Anyway, I'm not sure how I feel about this, though. I feel like this is kind of too short on the heels of the sports betting news to be able to head down to Atlantic City for a conference tournament.
Well, first of all, when I saw this in the rundown, I thought, very self-serving there, Christian, to put this in
Only
the show.
a lot, yeah.
But, yeah, you know what? At this point, I just think we should put everything in Las Vegas. The Knights are doing great. Sports betting's in. Forget Atlantic City. That's just a tinier, smellier Las Vegas. I think let's just move it all to Vegas. Let's have all the tournaments in Vegas, just one after another after another. Then everybody can go to Vegas and have a good time. That's what I would do.
Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, I guess. They're talking about putting an NCAA regional there. Who knows?
Yeah, let's do it. You know what?
Should be a lot of fun.
Let's just put every sports team in Vegas. Let's just saturate the market.
Why not? Like now that being said, I probably will end up going to watch the MAC tournament in Atlantic City just because at some point in those 3 years.
It's a good excuse to go to Atlantic City.
It's the only excuse to go to Atlantic City at this point.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I still have not been. After living in New York for 10 years, I still didn't bother making the trip down. So we got a lot to get to here today on the Cheap Seats. Of course, we'll get to Game 2 last night, what it means for Game 3. We're going to touch on the Stanley Cup in just a little bit as well. And, of course, our Mojo Monday. It's all coming up. He's Jon Lauder. I'm Christian Heimall. You're in the Cheap Seats on the Public House Media Network.
I'm the Greg.
And I am Dave Show.
We host the Greg and Dave Show on Public House Media.
Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out our show, The Greg and Dave Show, where we talk about strange, bizarre, and sometimes just downright quirky news stories that you may not have heard about.
A new show comes out every Wednesday. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes. And hey, thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Back here inside the Cheap Seats on the Public House Media Network. Jon Lauder here alongside Christian Heimall, our second segment of the show. And the NBA Finals, you know what? I think, Christian, we both sort of thought it was going to go this way. I don't know if we expected the first game to go the way it did, but not surprisingly, Golden State's up 2-0 and 2 games away from their third NBA title in the last 4 seasons. And not surprisingly, LeBron James and a bunch of scrubs cannot beat 3 or 4 future Hall of Famers.
You know, you're the second person I've heard say that after the game last night. 3 potential Hall of Famers. Are we that okay already in saying that with the Warriors? I mean, I understand they're one of the greatest teams of all time, but we're okay saying that Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Kevin Durant are already Hall of Famers?
Yes, because Mitch Richmond is a Hall of Famer. and I'm not kidding you, that is my argument to pretty much anyone getting into the Hall of Fame. If Mitch Richmond is a Hall of Famer,
okay,
then yes, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, and Steph Curry will all be Hall of Famers, and I think Draymond Green's got a shot too.
I agree with Draymond Green as well. I do. So all right, yeah. Listen, I mean
Now look, if all of them got career-ending injuries tomorrow, there'd have to be some discussion, but
right.
I think they're all going to be Hall of Famers. I do.
Okay, all right. I'm not really disagreeing with that just yet. I was actually going to at some point on this show with you debate I don't want to say the legitimacy, but maybe the validity of how talented this team is, and just where because eventually it all comes back to LeBron and Jordan and how much can we really measure up Jordan, how much did he go against, the same team with 4 future Hall of Famers and all that stuff. So we can have that debate, obviously, later in the summer when there's nothing to talk about. But, I mean, last night's game, very much, I thought after Game 1, after J.R. Smith reminded the entire world that he used to play for the Knicks, I kind of expected this. I thought I thought Golden State would win by at least 20. They only got to 19, so what do I know? But I really did think that after that game, it was going to be one of 2 things. It was either going to be a wake-up call to Golden State or a full-on, Cleveland gains some confidence and goes nuts. But now, with Golden State up 2-0, I still believe that LeBron gets 1 game at home and it goes 5, but a sweep does not surprise me anymore with this, especially when you have Steph Curry setting a finals record with 9 threes in the game and going absolutely bananas in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, he was ridiculous. I mean, 33 points, 8 assists, 7 rebounds, 26 points for Durant, 20 points for Klay Thompson, and he was hobbled. Yeah. They start JaVale McGee, who sometimes can't even put the ball in the correct basket, and he scored 13 points on 6 for 6 from the field. They were just too much. Cleveland just not enough. I mean, LeBron had a good game, but he has to
by
be
LeBron standards. By LeBron
right.
standards, he was not good.
No, he has to be otherworldly for them to win, and he only had 29 points, 13 assists, and 9 rebounds only. That's not enough. Yeah. I mean, the team was 9 of 27 from 3. They're terrible from behind the arc. J.R. Smith, again, was garbage. And after dominating Golden State on the boards in Game 1, they were 41-41 even in rebounds, and I think that made a huge difference as well. But, look, they had to win that Game 1. when George Hill missed that second free throw and J.R. Smith did the dumbest thing you'll ever see in basketball history.
Again.
You can't waste 49 regulation points from LeBron.
Yeah.
Of course, he gets 51 overall. He's the first player to ever score 50-plus points in a finals game and lose, the first since Michael Jordan in 93. And look, that was a disaster. I mean, the end of that game could not have gone any worse for the Cavs. And, you know, they were in a situation where really their only shot was to steal game one, and they had it, and they dropped it.
And I look at, I realistically, I look at the second quarter when at one point in the second quarter, and I'm gonna make sure I get this correct, because it kind of blew my mind when I saw it. In the second quarter, the Warriors were, I believe, let's see here, I'm not gonna be able to count all this, but the Warriors, I think, were something like 11 for 20, while the Cavs were like 6 for 23 or something like that in the second quarter. They were abysmal after being just 4 points away in the first quarter.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can't have that. You can't, and they did it. No. They did it again in the fourth quarter. I mean, in the fourth quarter, look at them. Fourth quarter, if you look at the shot chart, it's embarrassing. It's really, really insane. In the fourth quarter alone, the Warriors were 5 of 8 from 3, while the Cavs were 1 of 9 from 3-point land in the fourth quarter. That one, by the way, LeBron James from 30 feet on a pull-up shot.
Yeah,
like that's you can't have that happen.
No, and even going back to game one real quick, the Cavs had an 11-point lead in the second quarter, and then by the end of the quarter, it was a tie game going into half. I mean, Golden State goes on so many runs. They've got waves and waves and waves that come at you all the time, and they just never seem to stop. And, you know, I mean, Andre Iguodala has not played in forever, it seems, and it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. They're so much better. Draymond Green only had 5 points in game 2, made no difference whatsoever.
Nope.
They're just insanely good.
It's insane to me when you look at this. These numbers are ridiculous. I know we're going to look at, like, when you look at the fact that Golden State shot 57% from the floor and Cleveland shot 41%, already that's bad. But when you take into account that Golden State took 8 shots less than Cleveland and still shot 16 percentage points more. They were 47 of 82. The Cavaliers were 37 of 90.
Yeah.
The Cavs had, and these are things that, like, I understand that most of the time I go too far into the numbers, but 11 turnovers and the Cavs get 7 points off those 11 turnovers. That's not good. That's not, you had 9 steals, you get 7 points. How is that a thing?
Well, look, 2 more numbers for you, okay? The Warriors missed 8 free throws and still won by 19. And they shot better from 3 than Cleveland did from the field. They shot 41.7% from 3. Cleveland shot 41.1 from the field. I mean,
it's just not fair.
There's nothing else to say. There's nothing else to say.
It's absolutely not fair. It really isn't. So now we go to Game 3 coming up on Wednesday night in Cleveland, where, you know, I don't know what to think. Part of me thinks LeBron steals this one, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then it's over.
I agree.
And then, you know, he loses Game 5, gets blown out in Golden State loses Game 4, gets blown out in Game 5 in Golden State, and then, you know, immediately departs on a plane to Houston or something like that. Who knows?
Yeah, he'll probably score 75 points in Game 3, and then they'll have to carry him off the court because that'll be it. And yeah, you know, considering there's so much time in between games, I'm pretty sure Game 5 is in August. So, you know,
no, seriously, like, I woke up this morning and I felt like a kid in like a long car ride. Like, are we there yet? Are we there yet?
Yeah.
Are we there? Like, that's how this NBA Finals feels like. Because how in God's name, and we're gonna have to go into another segment because we're coming up on a break here in a couple minutes. But we're gonna, like, why were there 3 days between games 1 and 2 when you're playing in the same city? Why?
We already know what's gonna happen. Can we just get it over with?
Exactly. Like what was the point of this? And don't even get me started on the fact that we had to wait like 4 days between games in Boston and Cleveland in the Eastern Conference Finals just because, God forbid, it was like a sweep and we had to wait a week for the finals. God forbid. It's on, like, there's a thing called, like, I don't know, they're called flex schedules. I think the NFL does them, and where they just move whatever the hell they feel like. And here's the other part. You're the NBA. For the last 2 years, you have averaged over 20 million viewers for the NBA Finals. You mean to tell me that you think you're going to get better viewership on a Sunday? Quite possibly, but you also know what? You're going to get viewership no matter what. It doesn't matter when you're on. You're going to get somebody to watch. You had 20 million viewers each of the last 2 years.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing.
It's ridiculous to have these games so far ahead.
You know who loves it?
Far in between it.
You know who loves it? The NHL. And NHL fans. Yeah. Because listen, there is no bigger group of fans screaming, look at us, like NHL fans during the playoffs. But when you have these kind of breaks, what else is there to watch if you're a sports fan? Unless you're a diehard baseball guy like I am, you're not watching baseball in the middle of June when there's the Stanley Cup Finals on.
Yeah.
When there's a championship being decided, you're going to watch that as opposed to watching, as great of a game as it was, Justin Verlander versus David Price on Saturday night.
True.
You know, you're not going to watch that. You're not going to watch Chris Sale against Garrett Cole like we had on Friday night. Except you were, because there was nothing else on. You know, like...
Bad.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's bad. But anyway, Golden State's up 2-0. Christian and I both think that it will likely only go 5. I think we both expect Cleveland to win Game 3, some sort of masterful performance from LeBron James, and then that'll likely do it, unfortunately. But we'll take a break here. When we come back, we will discuss the Stanley Cup and a bunch more. We got about half the show left to play with right here inside the cheap seats on the Public House Media Network.
This is Sam Kirby, host of Cinema Stories here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Cinema Stories, where we hang out and just talk movie and TV news and reviews, and it's awesome. A new show comes out every single Tuesday. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Cinema Stories. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
I remember when I lost my mind. There was something so pleasant about that place. Even your emotions have an echo in so much space.
Back in the cheap seats, Christian Heimall and Jon Lauder here with you on this Monday, June 4th, 2018. Little Gnarls Barkley, that one-hit wonder. Yes. Who was
Beautiful
like...
one-hit wonder.
Yeah, it's not terrible, right? CeeLo Green and Modest Mouse, is that who it was, technically? I think. I don't know.
It was CeeLo Green and some weirdo.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, we got a lot to get to here in the last half hour of the show. We touched on the NBA schedule a little bit in the past segment. It's just I can't fathom it. I know I rambled on last segment, but John, I just can't do it because it makes zero sense to have 3 days off between games 1 and 2 when you're in the same freaking city. I don't understand.
Yeah, and look, the NBA schedule is 18 days if it goes to Game 7. But, you know, as much as we're... do you really throw up like that? That was very weird. But as much as we say that, the NHL's not much better. I mean, it's 16 days if it goes to a Game 7. And they still do the 2-2-1-1-1, which I hate the 2-2-1-1-1.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it. I'm not a huge fan. I do agree that I think if you've earned it, you should have games 6 and 7 at home.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've already talked about this, but I just feel like the 2-3-2 is better. But even though there's only a 2-day difference, Christian, it does just seem like the Stanley Cup final schedule is a lot better.
Well, here's why, though, because they only have we get to see it more. We get to see it sooner. You know, like after game 1, did you really want to wait 3 days and just get bored to death about, you know, J.R. Smith and then him finally admitting that he's an idiot, which we all knew? Did you really want to spend 3 days obsessing over the fact that LeBron and Steph Curry had some sort of conversation completely away from the basketball, and that Draymond Green is a pain in the neck that nobody really likes outside of his own team? Like, did you really want to get bogged down, or did you want to actually see basketball? After Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals, which was an insane game, it was unbelievable. 10 goals scored in Game 1, which was awesome, so much fun. You only had to wait 1 day to see Game 2. You only had to wait 1 day to see game 2. Now, in the NHL, I get it. I understand the 2 days off when you're traveling. I get that 100%. You don't need that in the NBA either. This is my other issue with the NBA. It's not hockey. It's not football. I understand that you got guys playing like LeBron, playing all 48 minutes, and it's a tiring game. I understand that. But you know what? At most, what's that 48 minutes actually taking up in real time? That 48 minutes of actual play. It's taking, what, 2.5 hours? Is that, it? Like, that's what... Baseball has it right, in my opinion. This is one of the things that I will fight to my dying breath about. Baseball has the 2-3-2, number one, which is important. But games 1 and 2 are back-to-back days, one travel day, games 3 and 4 back-to-back, off day, game 5, travel day, game 6 and 7 back-to-back. You get it over and done with. And we're getting to the point now, John, where we're starting to stop having the conversation of if Major League Baseball season is too long, the NBA season is too long.
It is.
We're in June.
It's too long.
Oh my goodness, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. I can't, I'm sorry, I just can't do it. I understand this has been one of the most exciting NBA seasons I've ever watched. I've actually cared about this NBA season from the beginning. From last summer I cared. But I'm over it. I'm done. I've had too much NBA. I can't. It's taken way too long and I need to be gone.
Now look, you can't compare, okay? You cannot
the physical
compare.
toll.
No, Bartolo Colon is not playing in the NBA.
I get that.
So that would be amazing. In fact, I would pay so much money just to watch him play a game of basketball. But anyway, I digress. But yeah, there's way too much time in between games. We could talk about this nonstop because it's obnoxious. But look, I think even the most ardent NBA fan would have to give a lot of credit to how good the NHL playoffs are every single year. It's so much better than the NBA playoffs. So much better every year.
Agreed. I mean, the atmosphere, we've talked about this before. The atmosphere is better. The actual games are better. Because of how they do their seating, even though I don't really like the way they did this year, the last couple of years, but it is much better in that sense. And again, the scheduling just makes it so that it's on. Like John, it was. I work in a casino, and I work in a sports bar. On a Saturday night, there's no hockey, or on a Friday night, no hockey, no basketball. Are you kidding me? Like in the finals. I get hockey because they played on Thursday and they're going to play on Saturday. Okay, that makes sense. Basketball played on Wednesday. They're not playing until or on Thursday. They're not playing until Sunday?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
That makes zero sense. Zero. And then they're not playing again. When's game 3 again? Wednesday? Yeah, game 3 is Wednesday. Another 2
Well, that one makes more sense because
it does because you're traveling. I get it, but
because San Francisco to Cleveland's so far away.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like they're traveling first class or anything.
Nope. Or chartered. Why would you do that?
Chartered, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. The whole thing's
all right,
a disaster.
let's get to something that actually was entertaining, and that is the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. 2-1 now for the Capitals after a 3-1 victory over Vegas on Saturday night. And John, I don't know how much of the game you watched. I actually did sit and watch every single second of it, which was awesome. If not for Marc-Andre Fleury, that game should have been 6-0 Capitals because they played so incredibly well. Their forecheck was unbelievable. And Braden Holtby was phenomenal again. And I honestly think if the Capitals go on and win this series, it's going to be, they're going to look back at that save he had late in game 2 to keep that game, to keep that lead for Washington as kind of the catalyst that carried Washington the rest of the way.
Oh, yeah, of course. And look, Game 4 is tonight. They've got a chance really to put this thing away pretty much if they can win Game 4. But look, I mean, Vegas had been down 3-1 in that game. They had a chance to tie it at 3 going into overtime where they would have had all the momentum, would have had the chance to go up 2-0 in the series. And then Holtby, I mean, that's one of the greatest saves ever when you consider the time, the situation, and the way the play sort of built itself up. Everybody in the stands was already standing up because typically in hockey, when you have that much space, it's going to be a goal, barring something insane. I mean, even Doc Emmerich, it sounded like, started to make a goal call, but Holtby, one of the greatest saves you're ever going to see. And now, of course, the Caps have their first 2 final wins in their franchise's history because they were swept 20 years ago.
Right.
By Detroit, I believe.
Yep. Red Wings.
But look, Holtby's been uneven in net his whole career in the playoffs. Even this playoffs itself, he's had some rough moments. But to be outplaying, in some ways, I know you said Fleury was really good in Game 3, but to be outplaying a guy who's already won multiple cups is impressive. But look, Vegas has been amazing all season. They've been one of the stories in the sports world. You know, they played too well to just sort of count them out, but they've got to win tonight. I mean, you don't want to go down 3-1 against a Capitals team that can sort of feel the momentum going their way now.
Right. I mean, and now listen, I will say this. Shea Theodore had a terrible game in Game 2. First off, he gets a shot blocked, which then creates a 3-on-1 to allow Kuznetsov to score and make it 2-0 Washington. Then he has a terrible turnover late in his own end, which then makes it 3-1 for for Washington with 14 minutes to play. So he had one of the better defensemen for Vegas, and really in the league this year, had a terrible game at the worst possible time. The other thing I will say, and this is where I find it like there are just some stats that just kind of blow my mind. John, if Washington wins tonight, this would be the first time all playoffs that they have been above 500 at home. They went into the finals 4-5 at home this playoffs. That's insane. And they end up getting that win in Game 3, excuse me. If they get that win tonight, it's going to be huge for them. I mean, I picked Vegas because I love the story and I want them to do well. I really do. But the way that the Capitals played Game 3, they were diving all over the place, blocking shots. Their forecheck was incredible. Holtby was great. And it just seemed as though almost like the Knights, it seemed as though they were more interested in beating up Washington than beating Washington at points in that game.
Yeah, and you mentioned the 4-5, that the Capitals were at home before Game 3. It just seems like in the NHL, home ice advantage just isn't as important, especially in the playoffs. It just seems like these teams, sort of rise up to the challenge, whether they're on the road or at home. And I just feel like more so than in any other sport, in the NHL, home ice just doesn't seem to matter that much.
No, you're not wrong there. You're not wrong there. And I think it's especially considering that the Capitals, who have always had these issues of getting past the Eastern Conference Finals, they finally beat Pittsburgh, and they did it on the road. They still had a Game 7 to play with if they needed to, but they didn't need it. They didn't need that Game 7 at home. They were able to go on the road and actually win it. So huge for them. Huge for Washington. That city is losing its freaking mind, and that's awesome. That's really good. I've got a lot of friends in that area, and it's just been, oh my goodness. Really, really cool to see the whole place just losing their minds over the last couple of days. So Game 4 tonight in D.C. Huge opportunity for the Capitals to be right on the brink of their first ever Stanley Cup. And who knows, John, we talked about it last week, I think, of whether or not this was good for the NHL, that Vegas could possibly win a Stanley Cup. Maybe this is the best thing, is for them to lose, in the finals after an incredible first year. But who knows? We'll see exactly what happens. Still got a lot to figure out over the next couple of days, obviously, here in the NHL. When we come back, we'll get to a couple of headlines out of the NFL, really out of just one area in the NFL, one very cheese-heavy area in the NFL world. We'll also get to our Mojo Monday. It's all coming. You're in the cheap seats here on the Public House Media Network.
This is Ryan Pierce, host of Completely Serious here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Completely Serious, where we talk about sports and have fun with great guests. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Completely Serious. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Every time I hear this song, Christian, I just want to run through a wall, fight a billion Spartans by myself. I don't know.
But all in black and white footage, though, right?
Oh, yeah.
All in black and white.
Black and white.
Exactly.
I want to play a football game when it's negative 700 degrees outside.
With a leather helmet.
Yeah, with a leather helmet, playing with a ball made out of a pig's bladder. That's gross. Anyway, so we're back inside the cheap seats here, off the rails as usual, on a Monday morning, June 4th, 2018. Christian Heimall, Jon Lauder with you. Please follow us on Twitter because you'll get stuff like pig's bladder. You can follow Christian on Twitter at Chris Heimall, ChrisHeimall. You can follow me on Twitter at Jon_Lauder. That's JON_LAUDER. Please make sure to rate our podcast, review it, listen to it, consume it, chew it up, spit it out, swallow it, whatever you want to do. Google Play, Spreaker, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotter, Runner, whatever. There's so many, podcast sites now. I can't keep up with them. Make sure you go to our Facebook page, the Cheap Seats by Public House Media. Answer the poll question. Better coach for the Bucks. No, see, I did it.
Pistons.
I did it. Well, that's because he used to coach for the Bucks. Better coach for the Pistons. Jason Kidd or John Beeline. The answer is obvious, but we'll let you decide. Make sure you go to the PHM store. You can get wonderful mugs.
I love my coffee mug, by the way.
Yeah,
I've got Cheap Seats. I've got one for Cheap Seats, and it's massive. It's like a 15-ounce. Oh, it's great.
Yeah, it's like that
basically
gigantic
mainline coffee out of it. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's like that big Reese's mug that John Oliver uses in Last Week Tonight.
Yes.
So you can get a gigantic coffee mug. You can get an iPhone case, sweatshirts, T-shirts. Still nothing with our faces on it, but we'll get there.
We're getting there.
Yeah, but the PHM store has got great stuff for you, so make sure you check that out. So when I saw on our programming schedule that we share amongst everyone, Green Bay in trouble, I was like, oh, all right, so pick on me today. That's cool. Now it's interesting
on you. It's just like there's nothing really to talk about in the NFL except for Clay Matthews getting hit in the face.
Yeah, so Clay Matthews got hit in the face with a softball at a charity game. Luckily, it was just like his nose. He's going to be all right.
The hair's
to
okay.
be honest with you, I think most NFL players have broken noses anyway, so he's just joining the club. It's probably not even the first time he's broken his nose. He's just
a hockey player.
So that's fine. Whatever. Now this whole thing with Aaron Rodgers, I mean, let's chill, okay? I would be stunned if Aaron Rodgers didn't opt out if they don't make if they can't agree to terms before he would be able to opt out anyway. I mean, in 2013, he signed a 5-year extension. He's under control through this season.
And next year.
And look,
2 more years.
Right, 2 more years through the 2019 season. Now, look, I mean, he's obviously woefully underpaid. I mean, for heaven's sakes, the guys ranked ahead of him are Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo, Stafford, Carr, Breeze, Luck, Smith, Flacco.
I think you have 2 Super Bowls combined between those 9 guys.
Yes, and one of those Super Bowls is from a guy that somehow, through some sort of, Monstars, I believe I can fly, Michael Jordan moment, sucked the talent out of somebody else.
In fact, John,
now pile of hot garbage.
Technically you have more because of Jimmy Garoppolo's got a ring. So technically I think you've got 3, maybe 4.
Stop it. I don't care. If you didn't play, it doesn't count.
But you've only got 5 guys in there who've actually been to a Super Bowl. Matt Ryan, Alex Smith, Joe Flacco, Drew Brees, and backup Garoppolo.
Alex Smith has been to a Super Bowl?
Wasn't he?
Yes, of course.
The year that Kaepernick took his job?
Right. I forgot about Kaepernick because he's not allowed in the NFL.
The year Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl, Alex Smith was sitting on the bench watching his team lose?
Oh, and Alex Smith is better than Joe Flacco. So confusing. So much stuff going on. Anyway, Rodgers is woefully underpaid. We all know that.
Yes.
Look, if Green Bay does not get him re-signed, they might as well just burn the stadium down because no one's going to go. There'll be riots. They'll want, the new GM's head on a platter. I can't pronounce his name because it's got a lot of K's and T's and U's. But look, they're going to figure it out. Rodgers is, in my opinion, the most talented quarterback in the league. If you want to say Tom Brady's better because of the rings, I get it. That's cool. But I'm not panicking about this. they'll make it happen. All right. I don't think Aaron Rodgers wants to leave Green Bay. Green Bay certainly doesn't want him leaving. They'll figure it out. If they let him go somewhere else, I'm just going to start, watching Pool or something.
Here's the only thing that gets me a little bit concerned. The only thing that would get me concerned. He's 35 right now?
Correct.
The shoulder injury, number one.
Yeah, that's true.
35, number two. And the fact that if he plays for these next 2 years without an extension, which it doesn't seem like he would, it seems as though he understands how much he's worth and will hold out if necessary to get what he's worth next year.
Yeah, of course.
The franchise tag is what really scares me. If you're Green Bay, if you're a Green Bay fan, the franchise tag should scare you because if they look at what's happening in Pittsburgh with Le'Veon Bell. By all accounts, the best running back in the league for many.
You can't compare those two players.
No.
Quarterbacks are so much more important than running backs.
I'm not comparing the players. I'm comparing what happens with the franchise tag.
Gotcha.
The fact that Bell has been tagged 2 years in a row, and this is a guy who may legitimately sit out games if he doesn't get a legitimate contract extension.
Yeah.
And he's the best at his position.
Yeah, you're right. Now,
that's what would concern me if I'm a Packers fan.
Rodgers has no leverage other than the fact that he's probably the best quarterback in the league, and that may seem like a lot of leverage, but he's not a free agent. Kirk Cousins was able to sign that 3-year deal with $84 million guaranteed because he was a free agent, had all the leverage in the world, and can say, teams come to me and give me all your money.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Rodgers is not. He doesn't have that right now.
Right.
But look, Green Bay would be insane to piss him off. They just would
they
be,
would. They would legitimately set the franchise back probably 5-6 years.
Oh yeah.
Legitimately. So.
Oh, for sure. You know what? They should just bring in Des Bryant, and then we can just have a fun old party.
Would make things a lot more fun, right? Would
exactly.
Be interesting. Now, John, I do want to bring up one other thing because we mentioned Clay Matthews obviously breaking his nose. No big deal. Should be fine by the time the season begins. Whoop-de freaking, surprise.
Whatever.
Doesn't really matter. There was one thing that I saw on NFL.com that kind of jumped out to me here. And I don't know if you've seen it, but how many of these people are really getting on the Jimmy Garoppolo train? And I don't know if you saw this. Who was it that put this out there? There was someone within the Niners organization, Cassius Marsh, who said that Jimmy Garoppolo used to shred the Patriots defense every single day. Now, the Patriots defense, I don't think, is that great, obviously. Cassius Marsh claimed off waivers last year the defensive end, former defensive end for the New England Patriots, and now part of the San Francisco 49ers, apparently said that, I played against him every day. I just lost it. Way to go. I knew because I was with the Patriots and he would shred our defense every day. He'd shred the first team every day, and it looked no different than when Tom Brady was on the field. He's a much better athlete than Tom, super disciplined and works hard. I'm happy to have him as my quarterback. Is this anything new to you, or is this just adding to the fuel that the Niners got a true steal out of the Patriots with Jimmy Garoppolo, and the Pats should have held out for more?
Well, look, first of all, Cassius Marsh, clearly not a real person because that name is ridiculous. Number one. Number two, this Marsh fellow also said that being on the Patriots was no fun because, clearly winning Super Bowls is not fun. And now everybody's coming out from both sides of this, the Teddy Bruschi's of the world, and that whole thing is ridiculous. If you win 5 Super Bowls, you can do whatever the hell you want. Anyone who can't handle New England doesn't care enough about winning. I'm tired of the whining of, New England's no fun and Bill Belichick's the worst. Stop it. Stop it. He's the best coach in NFL history. Tom Brady's the best quarterback in NFL history. They've won a gajillion Super Bowls. Shut your mouth. Okay? So that's the first thing. Second thing, look, until I see Jimmy Garoppolo play a full season of NFL football, you gotta pump the brakes a little bit, okay? I know he's yet to lose as a starter, and he did some nice things for San Francisco at the end of last season. I get that. But I don't care that you can shred defenses in practice, okay? How many times do we see that footage of Jamarcus Russell throw a football like 7,000 yards?
Yeah.
I don't care. Get me into a game situation, and then I care.
I don't disagree with you. I just think it's interesting that how many. I find it. I think what's more interesting to me, and maybe this kind of underlines because you brought it up. How many people are coming out and kind of like, this is really the Patriots, dynasty is being turned on its head right now.
Yeah.
Do you remember who was it? Was it Malcolm Bennett that said people started to question Pete Carroll after the Super Bowl and having him throw the football instead of giving it to Marshawn Lynch and losing that Super Bowl? And now they're comparing that to benching Malcolm Butler. Like it's oh my goodness, this franchise, this dynasty is being flipped on its head right now. And
it's true.
If this is how Brady and Belichick's career ends in New England, now I'm not saying it's going to end this year, obviously, but if this is how, like, if they don't win another Super Bowl, we're going to look at the end of their dynasty in two ways: benching Malcolm Butler and trading Jimmy Garoppolo. That's how we're going to look at it.
It's true.
So it's just one of those things that's really, really interesting to me. You're in the Cheap Seats here on Public House Media. You can catch us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Christian Heimall, Jon Lauder. We are here every Monday. Keith and Max on Wednesdays, and then Matt and Jake on Fridays. Check us out. Subscribe, rate, review, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spreaker.com, of course, thephmedia.com, where you can get some awesome gear for the show as well. Find us on Facebook, The Cheap Seats by Public House Media. Vote on today's poll question. Who would you rather have if you're a Pistons fan as your head coach, John Beilein or Jason Kidd? We both realize that it'll probably be someone completely different, but that's not fun in the debate. And you can always follow John and I on Twitter. You can follow John _JON _ Lauder, LAUDER. You can follow me on Twitter at Chris Heimall, ChrisHeimall. As we do every Monday, we'll end the show with our Mojo Monday, whether it's good, whether it's bad. Somebody's got mojo across the sports world. John, where are you going here on this Monday morning?
I'm actually going to stick with the Packers and go with Aaron Jones. I'm not sure if you heard the story, but the Packers running back was at the airport getting off of a flight, and then there was a woman on the flight. Let me make sure I get the story correct. She had no one to push her to her gate. So he helped her with her bags, pushed her to her gate, and then took a picture with her, and it was all over social media. Just a nice moment. And look, I mean, obviously in our cynical world of 2018,
right?
Everything's got to be on social media. Everybody's looking for the angle of, what's done legitimately, what's not. I mean, this was clearly, just a guy helping somebody out. And I know that we shouldn't laud this more than, something else just because he's an NFL player, but it was a nice little story, and it's just good to see nice little things like this considering what we're dealing with in our world, I guess.
Absolutely. I like it. That's awesome. I'm going to stay with some good mojo as well, John, and I want to take you back really quickly to 6 weeks ago, April 20th, when Danny Farquhar, pitcher for the Chicago White Sox, walked into the dugout and collapsed and was rushed to the hospital, underwent multiple surgeries. He had a brain hemorrhage, a fluid building in his brain. People weren't sure if he was going to make it. Well, this past Saturday, 6 weeks after that happens, he walks out to the pitcher's mound and throws out the ceremonial first pitch just 6 weeks later. And doctors are saying that he will pitch again if he wants to. It's going to take some time. It was awesome. I don't know if you got to see it. Being out here in the Midwest where Chicago sports rules all, I got to watch it live. It was real on TV. It was really cool. The entire team, his whole medical staff, the front office, people at the front, like salespeople, were out there as well as he threw out his first pitch with his whole family. Really, really cool to see. Really good on the White Sox, and even more so, the dude had a brain hemorrhage, and he's talking about pitching again. Like, that's just awesome. Incredible for Danny Farquhar.
It's insane.
A lot of fun here on the show. As always, we appreciate you guys supporting us every single week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday up here in the Cheap Seats. Don't forget to, as always, check us out on Facebook, The Cheap Seats by Public House Media, and vote on today's poll question. Game 3 tonight in the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. You've got Game 3 in the NBA playoffs coming up next year because the schedule is stupid. But we will we'll be sure to break it all down, of course, the next chance we get in the Cheap Seats. It's been a lot of fun here with everybody. We certainly hope you enjoyed it. We know we did. And as always, subscribe, rate, review, share us, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spreaker.com, TuneIn Radio, and of course, thephmedia.com. He's Jon Lauder. I'm Christian Heimall. We appreciate you guys being here with us all the way up in the cheap seats on the Public House Media Network.